And we welcome you to This Week in Umpiring. We're going to have a special guest for you in just a couple of moments. But first, I'd like to welcome our partners. And that is the OSIP Foundation, where outstanding sportsmanship is paramount. They're a 501c3 company. And if you need help from them, getting you sent in the right direction, if you've got some anxiety problems coming from officiating on the baseball field or any place where you might be officiating, contact them at osipfoundation.org. That's OSIP, O-S-I-P, foundation.org. And you can reach out to Jack and the gang, and they'll put you in the right direction. Also brought to you by Out West Officials and OutWestOfficials.com. Like them on Facebook. And as always, you always get free shipping with Out West Officials in all of the 50 states. That's by using the code, if it's under $75, CCS free ship. That's CCS free ship for under $75. And of course, over $75, it's always free in the 50 states, courtesy of Out West Officials. The other face on the screen, you may not know. It's John Ottavino, and I'm going to give you a bio of him because it might be an unusual one for some of our more frequent listeners and watchers. John Ottavino was an actor, still is. He's been in some unbelievably great movies, including Malcolm X, Bob Roberts, The Fisher King. He's also been on hit television shows such as Law & Order, The Commish, and a great season one arc on NYPD Blue. You can tell us, I'm sure, all the craziness that was season one of NYPD Blue with David Caruso. But today, he's on as an umpire because he transitioned to umpiring once his son became a college baseball player. And you might know his son. It is Adam Ottavino of the New York Yankees. But that's still not why we have John on. He's also a big-time New York City high school baseball umpire when he has the time, and he has worked the prestigious PSAL championship game. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk to you a little bit, kind of have you on, but first of all, I want people to know a little bit about what you do, which is including, I'm on your list, sending out your rule of the day, which is incredibly awesome, and you come from a federation background, but you also include OBR. Take me through a little bit about how you got started with this rule of the day and how people can reach out and touch base if they want to get that rule of the day sent to their inbox every day.
All right. About 7 years ago, I umpire in two separate leagues plus the high school league. And in one of the leagues, I was asked to be on the board. So I agreed to do it. I knew the guys who were running the league for a long time. They're good people. So everybody on the board had to have a job. And I said that I would do a rule of the day. And this started back when I was coaching youth baseball. And one of my players made a very costly error one day because he simply didn't know the rule to the game. So every day after practice and after every game, and it was a very highly competitive travel team, so we were meeting 200, 225 days a year, I would ask a rule of the day question and then explain that particular rule, which came in very handy. My third baseman got a game-ending out on an appeal play at third base. He knew exactly how to do it. So once I was on the board, I said, I'll send out the rule of the day to these umpires. And then I went over to the PSAL assigner and I showed him what I was doing. And he said, why don't you send it to everybody? So it's grown. I have 825 pages of rules of the day, and it goes out 365 days a year unless I have other things going on in my life. And it goes out between 400 and 500 umpires every day.
So John, if there is somebody, and we'll try to put this in the info section, how does somebody get that rule of the day from anywhere in the world? How do they reach out to you?
You just email me at jottavino, so I'll spell it JOTTAVINO @gmail.com. Tell me you want to get on. I'll send you the welcome letter and put you on my list, and it'll start showing up the next day.
And we'll have much more. We're going to be talking about, John, a couple of these plays here coming up. But first, the news of the week. It involves a big story about the umpire schools. And for all that, in the rotation, here's Gil Imber.
The Umpire School Minor League Baseball Umpire Training Academy put out a press release recently, and it has to do, I suppose, with the COVID-19 situation. The Minor League Baseball Umpire Training Academy announced that the January 2021 session has been canceled due to the pandemic, especially with what's going on in Florida with their experience of the pandemic. So many uncertainties. Obviously, our season is modified because of it. And so the Umpire Training Academy thought it best to cancel the 2021 session. It also canceled the 2021 Minor League Baseball Advanced course, which is the placement course that you go to for additional training and potentially getting hired into minor league baseball. So they're related, but they're two separate things. You got the school canceled, and you got the actual placement course, which they call the advanced course these days. That's been canceled as well. What this means, and you sort of draw it out a little bit, and we'll have more on the website in the coming days and whatnot, but what this means is that for all of the umpires that are currently in the minor league system, because as you know, every year you have people that get releases and promoted, and there's a bunch of flux and movement. What it means is that there's no downward pressure. And what I mean by that is that there's no hiring going on this year because they canceled the placement course. So there won't be any hiring from the placement course. So if you are at the bottom rungs of the minor league experience, you probably don't have to worry about being released because you haven't had a chance to do your job this year. And so you shouldn't have to worry too much about the threat of being released because there's really no one that would be taking your place from bottom up. Good news for you who are in the system and wondering what the fates are. This is at least how I'm reading the cards, and hopefully that's how minor league baseball intends to read it themselves. And for the upward movement up at the very top, what you might have are vacancies at the major league level if there are a few crew chiefs who do opt to take retirement after this year. Again, high risk, you're getting paid your full salary at this point if you are, or your negotiated salary, I should say, if you are deemed to be high risk, even if you did opt out. Plus, you're getting that year of service time credit. So if your pension is going to vest, if this makes the difference, the 2020 year, this is important for you. So there could be a few vacancies at the top. That means that some people who are AAA might move into full-time MLB, I should say, if there are, which means maybe a promotion from someone to AA who's on the cusp to AAA. And if you are a AA person who got promoted to AAA, let's say for the 2020 season, never got a chance to actually experience the AAA because of the cancellation, your spot is likely held over for another year. So this is probably good news for anyone who is currently in the minor league baseball system. If you are just trying to get to minor league baseball to begin with, obviously everything has been deferred another year, and that's not as great. But my sort of curiosity is piqued because we haven't heard anything from Wendelstedt School. There are two schools that feed into the minor league system through the placement course, the advanced course. Used to be Evans and Wendelstedt. Now it's MILB, Umpire Academy, and Wendelstedt. So Umpire Academy is canceled. Haven't heard about Wendelstedt just yet, but it's just an interesting thing. Just know that even so, you're not getting hired into minor league baseball because the advanced course which both schools feed into has itself been canceled for the 2021 season.
Well, Gil, in a world where seemingly everything is being done due to money, right? This was the right decision because you've got so many teams being contracted in minor league baseball, and still there's stories up in the air about that. There are a lot of mitigating circumstances of whether the Penn League might come back as a counterpart to the Florida State League, and they play half a season in some places. I mean, there's a lot of goofy scenarios going on right now. What one of them happens, who knows? But I'm glad for the most part that no umpires, unless they choose to, the way it's been told to me, are going to lose their jobs. Because you hate to see a guy coming back, sit out the year, and then be told, oh, by the way, we don't have any room for you. Now, let's hope that they can figure out a way to get 4-man in AAA, 4-man in AA, and have enough spots for the 20 to 25 guys that are coming in. Our guest this week, John Ottavino. John, are you glad you didn't take the professional and college route? A lot of hard work as a guest up there.
I know several of our PSAL umpires who are attempting to climb the ladder who have gone to umpire school and were supposed to go to the advanced course this year. So they'll be doing high school and college games if the season continues or if the season happens. But they're going to get pushed back a year.
So I love going over your resume because it's so fascinating. You have a chance to go into your family's stone business, which is legendary. You decide not to become an actor. And then as you're a world famous actor, you've got all these credits. You're a working actor. You're on all these plays, and then you decide, oh, that's it. I want to coach my son. Can you take me through each of those transitions and, how you came to those decisions?
Well, it's not that that's it. When you're an actor, one of the things you get is a lot of free time because we don't work all the time. So I would have auditions. And in fact, my favorite years when he was 11, I was on Broadway. So I would meet my co-coach at the park at 2:30. We'd lay out the field. The kids would show up at 3. I'd throw 2 hours of batting practice. I'd go up into the subway, take the train into the city, go to the theater, have dinner, take a shower, go do the show, come home. There were times where I would coach a game in the morning, take the subway in, do the matinee, take the subway back out, coach a couple of innings in the afternoon, take the subway back in, do the evening show. And it was a great year. I really enjoyed everything about that. So, when I was asked to help coach, I said to the fella, look, I'm an actor. The phone can ring at any minute. If I got to go to LA today, I will go to LA today. And he said, no problem. So it all worked out. We all worked together. And there were times where, as my son said, when dad was gone, he was gone. But when he was home, he was home. And it all sort of fit together. So that's how it happened.
When did you know? Now, following Adam's journey a little bit, he went to America East School, which is not where the big-time baseball prospects go. Though Northeastern does have a pretty good program, and now they are in a bigger league. When did you know that your son was really talented and might have a career in baseball? We're talking about Adam Ottavino. We're talking to John Ottavino, legendary actor, and in New York City circles, legendary umpire. And he's with us here on This Week in Umpiring. John?
Well, it's an interesting question because the first part you have to parse your way through is how good is good. And scouts don't even know how good is. Scouts make mistakes all the time. So, the only idea I had in my head and the only idea I tried to put in his head is, why don't you just keep walking forward and see what happens? If you get kicked in the teeth, and I promise you sooner or later you're going to, then you either stand up, dust yourself off and dive back in, or you go home. The choice will be yours. Keep going. So when he was in college, he did not get an awful lot out of high school, although he got drafted out of high school. He did not get an awful lot of love, and for a number of reasons. But on top of that, he really didn't want to go down south. He didn't really want to go, he wanted to stay in the Northeast area, which really limited his options. Now he found Northeastern, and he walked into they have those get rated by a college coach, NCAA, it's okay days. You pay $50, you work out with college coaches. They give you a list of things you got to work on. So he found Northeastern. We drove up to Boston, and I had been working the previous 6 or 7 months. So I hadn't seen him throw in about a year. And so, we're in the gym, and I'm helping him stretch, and I'm trying to, talk to him, and and he got up on the hill, and he threw the first pitch, and I went, whoa! And the father behind me went, whoa, indeed. And then I could see the pitching coach start walking closer and closer, and then the head coach walked over, and he said to the high school catcher, get out of there. Put in his college coach. And then the pitching coach said, do you have any other pitches? He says, well, I have a curveball. He said, can I see it? And it just snapped off and was a thing of absolute beauty. And he threw a couple of those, and the head coach turned to me and said, that's your son? I said, yes. He goes, we need to talk right now. And that's when I thought that maybe this could work a little bit. And then, his junior year, well, at the Cape, it was really the time where things started to look really good, because for the first 6 or 7 weeks at the Cape, he was number 2 behind his teammate, Tim Lincecum. And at the end of the Cape season, all of a sudden he's on the national screen and he's nominated for the Golden Spikes Award twice, or the Roger Clemens Award twice, which only one other, Jared Weaver's the only other guy who ever got nominated twice. So things were going well, but I didn't know where he would get drafted. And then on draft day, it came in the first round. And I looked at my wife and I went, first round? And that's it, because I don't know how good is.
Well, I want to get to in a little bit about how your umpiring career started, and also about what Adam did in a little place in Harlem, a little storefront in Harlem later on. But right now, how about we look at a couple plays and we'll kind of break them down together? How's that sound, John?
Sure.
So let's take a look at this first play. This is a play in Tampa Bay where we have a runner on second base, and even the person at MLB got the play wrong because they called this a double play. There's a runner on second and 2 outs. It's a tie game. Let's let it play out here. So this is 4-man, but we could look at this at 2-man. And if we're in 2-man, we've got one of those places, John. I know in 2-man, we umpire in these places, they got the little out of plays. So Sean Barber goes over there, tries to see if the ball is going out of play, and then he gets back into the keyhole. This play happened so quickly in just a couple of seconds. So now it's a strikeout. But the runner from second base is going to try to score, and the batter runner is going to be saved first. So Barber has to make sure the ball doesn't go out of play. And once he does, now he's got to get back to the plate where he doesn't realize the pitcher's covering, and watch him get to the tag is going to come. Now, when the tag comes here, it's either going to be a backward swipe. He's going to swipe it towards fair territory, or he's going to go kind of behind his back and spin move it. Either way, you're going to want to get to his on his right to be able to see that. It's going to be your best keyhole spot, and Barber finds that. That may have been the tiniest keyhole of all time, but he finds the legs up in the air, the tag is there, and this isn't our call of the week, folks. So that should tell you how great our umpiring was this week, and this is Sean Barber here. John, can you talk a little bit about, if you're a high school guy and you're working this in 2-man and you got the ball trickling possibly out of play, we're not going to have 60 feet of foul territory, but you got maybe 15 feet. Talk about how you would discuss this with a high school guy on how to cover this play.
Well, if you want me to give you the best 2 tips in umpiring, they're very simple. The first one is slow down, and the second one is move your feet. And this guy did a great job of moving his feet. He got all the way over because he has to see if it's going to go in the dugout, if it's going to go out of play, and all sorts of problems over there. He's lucky he's got 3 other guys who can look at timing. Then he's got to race this guy back and get on the plate side hip. And he did it, and he stuck his nose in there, and I tip my cap. He's a lot better than I was, because I wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, credit to Sean Barber. Now, if you're working third base here, it's one thing. You can see the touch, and Marty Foster's kind of walking in to see the touch there. But if I think if Marty had to do over again, he would say, boy, I really wish I had taken an angle to go towards the dugout, knowing how, again, it's a lot easier to umpire once you know how the play ends up. But at this point, you're not expecting the runner from second base to try to score. These are things that just kind of happen. If I'm the second base umpire who's out of frame here, this is a great opportunity for him. If we can back it up just a little bit, well, we're okay. When you see the second base umpire, not a terrible idea to get back behind second base, because when you think about it, your next possible play is only going to be at second. And that play is going to come from a throw that would be around the plate area. Maybe the catcher throws it from the warning track. So if you can get behind second and take it like kind of the new way approach on steals, you've got first base covered, you've got third base covered. Now, the only other way to cover this in 4-man, which is a super advanced mechanic, would be if Marty left his position and the second base umpire went over to third, the first base umpire came in. But we are talking super advanced. You better be working with that crew all the time. But as far as 2-man goes, this is about as perfectly as you can get distance to the dugout and then get back. What we see a lot of times in the lower level games, and John, I know you work a lot of them, and I try to get out there and work those 15, 13U games, is that guys overcommit to one position. They overcommit for the first play, and then when a following play happens, they're dialing AT&T long distance. So, I think that's really, really important to try to, in this case, we're splitting our distance, not on the field, but we're splitting as a home plate umpire, which is a little bit more unusual. John, talk about splitting the distance, John. I mean, your son goes into umpire, your son goes into playing at college, and this is kind of where your umpiring career starts off. From what I've read, that you have a little time on your hands. Someone's got a bug in your ear to umpire, and what happened?
Well, I missed my son. And I missed the fun we had because we spent more time together than any father and son has any right ever to spend time together. And we're still really good friends. We laugh like heck and we like each other. And I missed him and I missed all of that. And, you know, I'm talking to my buddy and he's umpiring and I'm hanging around the ball fields with nothing to do on a Saturday or a Sunday. So I said, you know what, why don't I see if I'm going to be any good at this? So he introduced me. I got a look. I took the paper test. I did very well. And the other nice thing is Ruben Ramirez, who's one of the PSAL New York City assigners, and also runs the umpires for the PGL, the Parade Grounds League, which is, if you're a Major League Baseball player from New York, you learn to play in the parade grounds. This is where the big boys come to play. And he works very hard to train his umpires. And he has an ex-Major League umpire, a current Major League. C.B. Buckner comes every year. He's got a bunch of minor league umpires, a bunch of college umpires who all come several times a year and trains everybody and goes through situations and plays and how to deal with coaches. And they really work hard. And that helps an awful lot, because all of a sudden, and the other thing he does is, while he will protect you for a short period of time in high schools where you're going to do developmental league games in A division and maybe a couple of AA, you're not going to get to the AAA for a while, but sooner or later you're going up to the AAA games, and some of these boys can really play. And you'll be up there with a very experienced umpire, but you better know what you're doing, because the coaches know what they're doing and the boys know what they're doing. So there's a lot of help. There's a lot of support. The advanced umpires do a lot of work to help us get along and protect us. But after a while, you know, after 2-3 seasons, you're in. And you can end up anywhere, because he doesn't, you know, there are some games that he will only send, you know, professional minor league umpires to, but that's very rare. And you can, on Monday, I can be doing a top level AAA division game where the guy's throwing 92. And on Tuesday, I can be doing a developmental game where, of the 9 people on the play, in the field, one of them has held a bat before. So you never know what you're going to get, and it's what it is.
Now, as far as baseball milestones go, we talked about off the air that you haven't reached many first, but there is one that you trumped your son, and that's when you got to work a pretty important game, the granddaddy of them all when it comes to New York high school. Take me through how you found out you got to work the PSAL championship, where the game was, and all that fun stuff.
Well, I was home, actually, and the phone rang, and it was Ruben, my assigner, and he says, John, I got a game for you. It's not till, you know, next Monday, but I got to make sure you're available. And you've never been to this field. It's at 161st Street and River Avenue. And I know that's the address of Yankee Stadium. And I went, really? He goes, yeah. You've been a great help. You've helped all the boys out. You're ready to do this, blah, blah, blah. So I had first base. And it was interesting because one of the teams was Lower East Side High School, which is on the Lower East Side of New York. And there were 2 travel programs that came out of the Lower East Side. So I get there and I jog out to first base, and the first baseman's standing there, and I've done his game since he's 10 years old. And he looks at me and he goes, you? I said, what? I said, you got somebody better? And he goes, no, I didn't mean that. It's just I'm surprised to see you. And I said, to tell you the truth, I'm surprised to see you, but I'm really glad you're here, and I'm really glad I'm here. And why don't you go show everybody how good you can be today? Wow. And he said, great. And so it was lovely. And the only thing that was fascinating was there was going to be 2 high school games Then there was a charity softball thing. There were going to be 3 or 4 games and then something else. So they opened up the concession stands. So I'm smelling French fries cooking and I'm starving. So around the 3rd inning, I went up to the first baseman. I said, man, those French fries are killing me. He goes, what do you mean? I said, don't you smell that? I'm starving. He goes, well, I'm a little busy. I said, yeah, I'm busy too, but wow, I could use some French fries right now. So I said to my son afterwards, I said, you know, I never knew this. He goes, oh yeah, we're smelling food from 2 o'clock in the afternoon on. I said, you got to blow this into the opposing team's bullpen. You know, they'll go in and they'll overeat and they'll come out all sluggish. And he goes, I like the way you think, Dad. Yeah, good thinking. Well, I'll suggest that.
That was better than Costanza's idea for the uniforms.
A lot better.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Normally we end the show with our calls of the week, but I wanted to get to them now so we can talk a little bit more with our guest this week, John Ottavino, the great New York City baseball umpire, and as well as the son of Major League Baseball player, as we talk about all sorts of stuff. So we have 2 calls of the week this week. Gil, can we save the Lance Barrett call for our second one? Because that is a insanely gutsy call. And I wanted to look at, I believe it's Danny Bellino on the plate, because this is our runner-up for call of the week this week. There can be only one on this particular week, and we'll show you why in a moment. But this is Danny Bellino at the plate. And, well, that's as big as it gets. Squint, folks. This is going to be a sacrifice fly situation. So this is coming from the right fielder and almost feels like it's in slow motion. Oh, that is. So anyway, this is, you think when you see it that Dan Bellino is sitting on a knee when you see this play. I'm not sure why it's not loading, Gil, but the key to this play is the catcher sets up. There's no place the catcher's going to go that's going to obstruct Dan's view on this. So he kind of stays in a scissors set when we see it from, and again, this is a shorter clip. He stays in a scissors set, but right when he knows that there is no place for the catcher to go, that it's going to be a tag, he gets down on a knee. He wasn't sitting on a knee. He wasn't waiting on a knee, but he's in an active position where he can move, and then he settles into the play on a knee. And that was a great look. That guy was out by about that much. And when you're there and you see it, John, it's unbelievable, isn't it? You're right there, and everybody goes, oh, my God, that was so close. And it's like that much, and you go, that wasn't that close.
It's amazing what's hard and what isn't. But when you're right there and everything unfolds in front of you, you go, yeah, that's easy. He's out. There are other times where I have said to a coach on occasion, why don't you save it for a tough play? If you're going to yell, save it for a tough play. That one was easy. And, but he's right where he needs to be, because he also has to look up the third baseline to make sure that the line isn't blocked, that the catcher is not blocking the line without the ball, that there's not all of those new slide rules are getting broken, and certainly the high school slide rules. So he was great.
And it's always the lower levels you go down, it's harder to umpire. But in general, if you're working a 13U game and the guy says on the first play of the game where the guy's out by a step, hey, let's go, Blue. It's going to be the kind of day where you're going to have to address the coach eventually. But you just, maybe that you don't have to. But it happens. Some guys just wake up on the wrong side of bed.
I'm lucky because after this time, and because my son happens to be a Yankee, everybody sort of knows who I am. So I probably get credit I don't deserve, because they're thinking, well, his kid's a major leaguer. He must really know stuff. My kid's a major leaguer because he's really good at what he does. We had fun going along, but he made himself a major leaguer. I did not. But it's also, everybody knows me, so they know what they're going to get. They know I'm going to run my rear end all over the field. And they know where my line is. So I also have a very, very long leash with coaches. I have a short leash with parents, but with coaches, I have a long leash. And I'll come over and I'll talk to you. I will explain stuff. I have no problem helping you understand what just happened.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about your son's decision to completely convert a storefront into a pitching paradise. Did your son bring this up to you and say, "Do you like this idea?" And
No.
one of the things that draws me to you, John, is your out of the box thinking, which I really appreciate. And it seems like you transferred some of that on to your son, who obviously not a lot of players are doing what he's doing.
Um, people ask me if you're proud of your son for being a baseball player, and I say no. I'm proud of my son that every time he got kicked in the teeth, he stood up, dusted himself off, and dove back in. Resiliency really matters. So unfortunately for him, 4 years ago, I think it was, he did not prepare properly for the season. He had just gotten married. He's got a little baby at home. Driving out to where he was training was difficult. He couldn't find anyone in New York to train with. And to be honest, he's been honest about it. He said, I came in probably a little unprepared. And the first game I saw him on TV in spring training, I went, uh-oh. And I got friends texting me how great he was, and, struck everybody out. And I'm going, no. I know this ain't him. So by June, he was in a really bad place. And he set a major league record in the number of wild pitches in an inning that he could throw. And he was out in Denver, and I like Denver. So, I called him up and I said, I'm going to come out. And he was a little sensitive. What are you gonna do? Wave a magic wand? I said, no, pal, I don't have that kind of power, but I like you. Why don't I come out? We'll hang out. So I went out, and it happened to be a day that he and DJ LeMahieu were throwing a party for the Rockies on his rooftop. His wife handed me an apron and said, you got the grill. So I grilled food and cleaned up after all these guys. And then at the end, he and I did what we always did. We went out, we took a long, long walk. So I told him everything I saw. He told me everything he thought. And then at the end, he looked at me and he said, it's okay, Dad. I have a plan. And I said, well, that's great to hear. If you need anything from me, I'll be glad to help you out, and go get him. So the rest of the season went along. Things improved a little bit, but it was not him. That's when he got the place in Harlem. And as you know from reading, he got his father-in-law built this mall and had an empty storefront and offered it to him. So he went and ordered all of this equipment. He went to see Cressy. He went out to Driveline. He went and talked to a lot of people, and he assembled this. I don't know what he spent, but he had an AstroTurf pitching lane. He had a mound. He had a back. He had a clock, a speed gun. He had Rapsodo. He had a high-speed camera. And what I did is I came and I helped him bolt all steel together, because I grew up in a family business and I which wrench to hold, and he never had a job in his life that wasn't baseball. So I helped him out, and I would stop by on Wednesdays to take out the garbage and drop off his mail and, tell a couple of jokes with him and then leave him alone, because it was him and a bunch of minor leaguers. Every once in a while, one of his Rocky buddies would come by, but these were men at work. They were very interested. These minor leaguers were very interested in getting better. And in fact, one of the best things I did was I asked him if I could invite some high school coaches that I admired to come and look. And so some high school coaches and some youth coaches who I thought were smart and knew what to do. And I got them in, and it was a day that two major leaguers were in there besides Adam, and they got to watch them throw. But I said to them, never mind what you're seeing, go stand behind Adam, who had the computer in his lap, and just listen to them talk to each other. And to hear them talk about moving your finger, putting there, pressing there, changing this, these little tiny things. This was a world of knowledge to them. And one of the coaches was from Stuyvesant High School, which is the high school of math and science that you have to compete like heck to get into. So he brought two of his players, who of course are science students, and they fell in love with this equipment. And they're like, how do we get our hands on this? I said, go talk to your physics teacher and tell him you need it for an experiment you want to do, and then steal it. So, you know, he built it. It was his idea. He did it. And I tip my cap. He did a great job.
There's always a way to get better. I talk about it with umpires all the time. Should never be bored. There's always a way to get better. And that leads us to our call of the week. This is Lance Barrett. And this is his first appearance on our call of the week segment. Do not try this at home. Do not try this in the PSAL, John. Do not try this in independent ball. Do not try this in your D1 field. This play is crazy. And I would never call it unless I was 100%, and this play comes back confirmed. So it's a steal of second base. And watch this. High throw, clearly safe. And then that was a signal of Lance Barrett. I don't know if you caught it there. He was saying, you come up off the bag, you're out. Now, we try to make this a little bit more, maybe a little bit more definitive when we signal this. We want to do that. You're off the bag. You're off the bag. Or if he's past the bag, do a sweeping motion past the bag and then signal it out. But that kind of looked like a safe mechanic and then an out, which might lead to confusion. But let me just put it to you this way. I don't care if you did a cartwheel before making this out call. This was the correct, confirmed on replay out call. And to see that from where he was and to be definitive, and that is why, Lance Barrett, you have This Week in Umpiring's Call of the Week. John, what do you think of making that call?
I think he's a whole lot better than I am. I also know that on the fields of New York City, that base isn't pinned down very often. So
it's sliding.
He's sliding out into the outfield, so he's going to be safe no matter what happens next.
And how often I spent some formative years on the Philadelphia, with the overhanging cages, where we lose outs due to pop-ups right on top of home plate. I'm sure we've got a bunch of those in New York. How frustrating it is to get those pop-ups and you lose it out. Like, we got
I actually, the mayor of New York City lives on my block. And when his son was 5 years old, he called me because I was running the youth league then, because usually you start at 6. He wanted to know if we'd let his kids start. And we had an hour-long talk about baseball. And so he followed Adam. So he's, this kid from my block's in the major leagues. This is great. And he's a baseball nut. He's a Red Sox fan, but we can get past that. So I would see him at the gym in the morning, and these trees had grown out over Prospect Park. So not only are they losing outs because of the backstop, they're losing outs because the trees are hanging over the field. And I can't get the Parks Department to trim them. So finally, I buttonholed the mayor in the steam room one day, and I said, Bill, I need something from you. What do you need? And I said, these trees got to get trimmed. And he goes, of course they do. And then we got them trimmed. So the best way to negotiate with someone is when you're both naked in the steam room. Generally, that's when you can get what you want. So it all worked out.
And to get naked in the steam room with the mayor of New York City, it might be a little more difficult, and it might necessarily might be difficult for the average person, but for you, John, you managed.
His bodyguards are outside the steam room. Once you get in the door, it's okay. It's all everybody's just a person then.
You just got to get by the bodyguards.
They all know who I am by now. They know everybody.
Hey, John, you want to plug how people find out the rule of the day? And let me tell you what, folks, get this rule of the day. I'm telling you, it gets your mind thinking, and it comes in OBR. It puts it in Federation. So, a lot of people say there's not enough stuff about Federation out there. There is if you get John's rule of the day. John, what was that email again?
It's, again, my first initial and last name. So it's JOTTAV like Victor INO @gmail.com. Just send me your email address. Tell me you want on. I'll give you a welcome letter. Tell you what we're doing, and you'll get 365 rules of the day for the next year and onward.
And next time you're on, we'll have to do a whole show just dedicated to the chaos that was season 1 of NYPD Blue.
Oh, I loved working for him. I mean, Stephen Bochco was a genius, and David Milch, who wrote that, I mean, I don't think there's been a better writer in television. I mean, he invented a new language. He wrote Deadwood. He invented a language. He is truly a genius, and Bochco was great, and working there was fabulous.
When you think about that, you know, Bochco and Milt, they just have the best cop show of all time in Hill Street Blues, and then now they're going with this show, and they put ABC under the fire. Reading about this stuff, they said this is the way we're going to do it, or else we're not going to do it, and they held to their guns, and what they got was just unbelievable television.
Stephen Bochco's license plate was debunk, as in debunk the myth. All you needed to do was tell Stephen Bochco what he could not do, and it would be done. He was a special person, and really good at what he did. I didn't know him that well. I talked to him a couple of times. I auditioned for him a couple of times. He hired me, but I really admired everything. He got me in trouble because I was doing a play, and I'm supposed to learn lines for the next day's rehearsal. And I'm down in the basement working on lines, and I put the TV on, and the opening of Hill Street Blues, the pilot, is being shown. And I couldn't take my eyes off it. So I lost 2 hours that day where I was supposed to be working on my lines, and I got a little hairy eyeball from the director the next day for being less prepared than I probably should have been. But I had to watch it. It was magnificent.
You know, a lot of people talk about who's that guy in that thing. Well, it's likely John Ottavino, who was in so much stuff in the 90s, and a huge. I mean, you did every Law and Order, and then they brought you back again. I mean,
I've been lucky. I've done just about everything an actor can do.
And now you've done just about everything an umpire can do at the high school level, John. This is one of the greatest guys and greatest careers of all time, from acting to umpiring to occasionally watching his son play in a big league uniform. What a life.
I watch him 162 games, and my stomach is not good. You want to hear a father yell at an umpire? That's me, but fortunately I'm in my living room. Come on, that was a strike. What's the matter with you?
Well, one last thing I got to ask you. So you see that box on the screen.
Yes.
And you know that it's right, hopefully, east and west. But then you look at it, and it maybe just clips the box or just misses the box. Do you go to like close call to find out whether there's a strike or not, or do you have a way?
I just start yelling. I just start cursing at him. What's the matter with you?
It hit the box.
That's a strike. Oh, come on, Blue. But I do it in my living room. I don't do it at the field, which is the difference.
Yeah.
And my son and we don't talk much about it, except he says if a pitcher throws it, it's a strike. I don't understand what your problem is. Call strikes. Let's go.
Has Adam ever been thrown out of a game in his life?
Yes, he was thrown out in the minors. There was a long moonshot up the first baseline, and it clearly went foul, according to my son. The batter stopped running and turns around to go back toward home, and the umpire at first called it a home run. So he went, they appealed to the home plate umpire. Can you guys talk? Blah, blah, blah. And they didn't overturn it because it was above the pole. And I think my son said something untoward to the umpire, which got him thrown out. And the only way I knew was I used to pay all his bills when he was on the road. So I saw this canceled check for several $100s as a fine. And I called him up. I said, "What'd you get fined for?" He goes, "Well, I got thrown out of a game and blah, blah, blah." Oh, okay.
Several hundred. That must have been more than the $25. He must.
No, this was several $100s. I don't remember exactly how much, and the details are fuzzy. But he said, when I looked at the umpire, he had that deer in the headlight look. He knew that he didn't get it. He knew he didn't know. And I think I said something to him. I'll be in the major leagues long before you will be. And I think that's what got him thrown out. So there you go.
It is. Well,
hey, Once in, I mean, he's been a professional player for 15 years. So once in 15 years is pretty good.
I once came across a player in my personal, dealings, and he said, "Hey, do you know so-and-so? 15 years ago, he was a former big leaguer. I said this to him on a play at third base, and he didn't eject me. And I was walking off, and I said, I've always felt bad about it. I retired the next year, and if you reach out, could you say something to him?" And I actually had the back channel and it's amazing that some players hold that, and they're like, "Oh, they're such nice people." And we all focus on the people that are yelling and the ones that are demonstrative, but they're actually, as I'm sure your son can attest, the large swath of big league players are actually very nice people.
I think in the history of my son as a professional, there has been exactly one player that he did not like. There's a couple of guys that, he's not my kind of guy. He's this and this, but he's a good guy. There was only one guy that he goes, "No, this is a bad guy." Yeah. But that's it. He's played with thousands of players, and all the guys I've met are the nicest, most polite young men. They have this different job, and they were lucky they were born with a skill set and an opportunity to develop it. So good for them.
John, thanks so much.
Thank you.
John Ottavino, our guest this week, and we will have a lot more next week about all the news around Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, breaking news, whatever news breaks, we will have it for you right here on This Week in Umpiring. For my guest, John Ottavino, and my broadcast partner, Gil Imber, I am Tim McCaffrey. Until next week, happy umpiring, everyone.